he was that era's Derek Jeter, okay? And he knew he was like the leader of the club, and I'll never forget that night. He had said to me, go take your bench. They had me to be the ball boy that night. So that he had me take the bench that we used down to the by the tarpaulin. And then he said, come back. And so when I came back, he said, okay, now when Eddie Layton plays Here Come the Yankees and we run out to the field, you run out with us. And so as soon as the music went on, you know, like it was like it's a big production. That whole thing is a big production, you know, and everybody you see, they get nervous or whatever. You know, it was a lot of things that I learned about my major league heroes. And, you know, like Bobby and everybody, they took deep breaths and all that. And all of a sudden when the music goes on, they started to run. And Bobby said, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. And we ran out to the field. And so it was incredible. That was that way. And that was Bobby Mercer. He made me feel like I was one of the guys.
That is amazing. That is amazing. You know, Ray, there's so many layers to your book. It's a beautifully written book. We're going to go over to our next graphic, and I'd just like to read something from the back cover of your book. And it's from Diana Munson. And she said, I cried as I read Yankee Miracles. Only Ray could have told these stories, and only he could capture Thurman and the boss the way he did because of his unique relationship with them both. Ray, if you can for a moment, because we're going to talk about the boss a little bit later, but just tell us about your relationship briefly, if you can, with Thurman, and we know about the tragic ending, and if you had, you know, any of your personal thoughts that you could share.
I will just say that, you know, I used to be the guy that used to drive him to Teterboro Airport, and I gladly did it because he would always give me a brand new Cadillac to use whenever they were on the road. So it was awesome. And he trusted me with that car, and, you know, he knew I wanted to drive around my neighborhood and show off and pick up girls because of it. You know, I mean, that was just the timing. So he was awesome. He was just an awesome person who, when we were in the car, we would have a lot of wonderful conversations, and we would talk, you know, a little bit about everything. And he was a pretty smart guy. He was very bright. He was very cool, and he was just someone that, you know,
We lose him?
Ray?
Well?
Ray, are you with us?
So that was Thurman Munson.
Wow. You know, Ray, you also had the responsibility, as you said, to pick up his Cadillac at the airport. I believe you said Teterboro, and I think that's when the realization hit you that he wasn't coming back, and I think you broke down and cried.
Well, there's no question about it. It was it's something that I still think about to this day, and I talk about it with his wife whenever I see her and stuff. So, yeah, he, you know, again, somebody special and someone that anybody that knew him will never forget.
Ray, we're going to move along to our next graphic, and there's a chapter in the book about Alex Rodriguez, and you have a pretty amazing story where you go out on the street outside of Yankee Stadium, and you play a stickball game with none other than A-Rod, and people passing by are doing double takes, and it takes people a while before they realize that this is actually you playing a stickball with A-Rod. Could you just give us your thoughts on that game, but then more importantly, who you introduced him to with a local Little League, and how heartwarming it was, and maybe another side to A-Rod?
Well, you know, A-Rod, you know, is a guy that people don't understand. You know, he is truly, as I like to say, he's the man in the mirror. He's a guy that people will always criticize and everything else, but yet this is a guy who, just like the boss, he likes to do things in his own way, quietly. No one needs to know that I'm helping people. Nobody needs to know that I'm with these kids. Nobody needs to know that I'm playing stickball with these kids, and that's all there is to it. That's the guy that I know. That's the guy that I know. So I'm only sorry that New York will never really get to know him.
Well, you know, Ray, again, there's a very touching and illuminating section of your book when it comes to A-Rod. You introduce him to a gentleman in a wheelchair who dedicates his life getting kids from the inner city off the streets and playing baseball. And I think A-Rod, with your kind of direction, not only opened up his wallet and wrote out a big check, but I think he rolled up his sleeves also and actually participated in some games, etc. Is that correct?
You're talking about Tony. He's a gentleman who had been, in his younger days, he was a very decent baseball player who had been vandalized and shot like 9 times, survived, and the rest of his life went towards helping kids because of what he had lost. And Tony, in turn, I put him together with Alex. Alex found out what the story was with Tony, and in turn has helped Tony's organization right there across the street from Yankee Stadium for over the last 7 or 8 years.
These are the kind of things that you don't hear about. You don't read them in the tabloids. You don't see stories like this on Twitter or anywhere else because they're positive stories, and people unfortunately like to dwell on the negative. You know what, Ray? What we noticed about your book, you don't dwell on the negatives. So we want to applaud you for the book, the way you went about writing it.
Nice job.
Ray, we're going to go over.
I appreciate it.
We're going to go over to our next graphic, and we're going forward quite a few years, and you have your arms around an older George Steinbrenner. He looks like he's, again, much older and towards the end. And on your other side, you have your arms around Reggie Jackson. And in the book, you compare, there's some similarities between Reggie and A-Rod in your mind. Could you just briefly let us know what you think there are the parallels between the two Yankee superstars?
Well, you know what? In the earlier days, you had Reggie and Thurman Munson, our captain, and then some 35 years later, you would have Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter, and our present-day captain. And hey, you know what? There are similarities between Jeter and Thurman Munson, and then there are a lot of similarities between A-Rod and
Reggie.
And Reggie.
Yeah.
And, the ego. I mean, A-Rod has an ego just like Reggie. But you know what? I go to war with those guys anytime, any day.
Yeah. No question about it. No question about it. Now, when we speak of George Steinbrenner, it looks like in that picture, again, it's towards the end. It is amazing that you became an advisor to George Steinbrenner. When you say advisor, in what capacity specifically, Ray, could you share with us? There's probably some aspects of your relationship that you want to keep private, but in what regard did you advise him?
No, with the boys, he would say that I was his eyes and ears. And if I like the situation, if I like a player, if I like, in essence, certain things, I let him know, and he would, at that point, make decisions on certain things. Or he would talk to his other baseball people and say, well, Ray likes this because, what do you think? And that was my assignment. That was my job, per se. But you know what? It didn't just deal with baseball. It dealt with everything because he, in essence, trusted me that way. And I say that with a lot of pride.
Yeah, you should have a lot of pride in...
It's of George Steinbrenner.
Ray, we know you're pressed for time. As a matter of fact, you're at Yankee Stadium right now. But just a few things to kind of wrap things up. And one of them that jumps off the pages, Ray, is that you start off as a bat boy.
Right.
And then you become an advisor to George Steinbrenner. But then, Ray, along the way, you find your true calling. And we touched on it a minute ago with your ability to have A-Rod to make a connection with the kids in the community and playing stickball. So you have become, and your calling is, you are a community ambassador. So first of all, we want to applaud you with that.
Good job.
But Ray, it's even more amazing than that, because not only are you going out of your way to make connections and getting kids off the street, but we're going to go over to our next graphic, and there's a connection with you and the community when it comes to helping the sick. And Ray, it's not only you going over to Derek Jeter and say, hey, this kid is sick and he'd like to meet you. You've gone above and beyond that. When we introduced you, Ray, we said you were a New York Times best-selling author, and you wrote a book called The Boy of Steel. And you generated hundreds of thousands of dollars for cancer. And if you can, research. And if you can, please tell us about that book and how you got involved with it.
No, it was just a book that it was easy to do. It was something that came into my mind when I was watching Robinson Cano and a little boy countering at a hospital one day. And I just went home that night and I just wrote this book. I showed it to the boss. And he said, do it if you want to do it. Yeah, and then I said, I thought that it would be cool to give the money to cancer research. And he said, you know what? God's blessed you, so it's found money. So if that's what you want to do, that's what you should do. And that's something that he always did. And yeah, you know what? Ain't nothing wrong with wanting to be like George.
That's right. You know what? Well, first of all, we applaud you. But second of all, I have to say you're being very modest, because you raised over $300,000 for cancer research with that book. That's one thing. And the other thing, Ray, is what you did is, with writing that book, and George knowing that he saved you from the street, so to speak, he wrote you a letter. And again, you didn't mention it, so because I could tell the type of person you are, so I'm forcing you into this. And only because I did a little research. He wrote you a letter, and you folded it up, you put it in your wallet, you carry it around with you. Can you share with our viewers, because it's an amazing letter, could you just tell us briefly what George Steinbrenner wrote in that letter to you, Ray?
You know what? Only because I'm delayed in time here, but I will say that it's my most possession. It's a copy of the letter. The letter is framed in my wall at home, but I always keep a copy in my wallet. And he just, in essence, said how proud he was for what I had done, what I had achieved, that the fact that I had been a best-selling author. To him, that meant as much as his world championship trophies. And, you know, I know how he felt about that, so I thought that was incredible for him to say. I mean, literally to the point of making me cry.
Wow, that's unbelievable. We all know George Steinbrenner. We all know his zest and his passion for winning. So if he wrote you that, Ray, that is an amazing testament to him, showing the other side to him, and also to yourself. I heard you say to your press for time, I want to thank you for the time that you shared with us. Ray, just one more thing before we let you go, and what I want to say, we're going to go over to graphic number 9. It's you dressed in a nice suit and tie. You know what? We're going to pass up on that. I was going to ask you a question about Yankee Mount Rushmore, but I don't think you have time for that, Ray. But
let me just say, Mount Rushmore, the Yankee Mount Rushmore, for me, would be Munson and Jackson, and it would be Jeter. It would be Jeter and Mattingly.
Wow. Okay.
Can't go wrong with that.
You know, we've asked that question a number of times, and we've put a different spin on it, because the old-time Yankees, there's no argument about Gehrig and Ruth and DiMaggio and Mantle. Those 4 and only 4 are on the old-time Mount Rushmore. But Ray, time flies. You were with George Steinbrenner from the beginning in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 10s. We're in the 5th decade, so there is some symmetry, and we thank you for weighing in on that. But we're going to go over to the next graphic, Ray. Just hang in there for one more second. We have a picture of you at a podium, suit and tie on, looking very sharp. I once again want to read from the back cover of your hard copy book, and it is from Bob Costas. And he says, much of sports can leave us skeptical, if not cynical. but I defy anyone to read Ray Negron's remarkable story and not come away believing that there still can be genuine heart, soul, and even redemption in the games we watch and play. And you know what? He hit it right on the head, Ray, and we want to applaud you for that, and we want to applaud you for the book. And in closing, your last chapter, Ray, is called Last at Bat. And the old Yankee Stadium, 2008, the last game, we all know that Jose Molina hit the home run in that game. And they literally shut out the lights. And you told a very poignant story. 3 o'clock in the morning, you came back on the field. You went to home plate. You had a buddy of yours with a bucket of balls, and because you were a very good baseball player yourself, you played minor league ball. You wanted to be the last one to hit the ball, the fair ball, out of Yankee Stadium. You didn't do it that night, and you had the guts to actually say it in the book. You didn't fabricate something. You said, I hit some to the warning track, but it didn't go over the fence. I hit one into the seats, but it was to the left of the left field foul pole. You didn't hit a home run that night, Ray, but you know what? You hit one into the upper deck with this book. And we applaud you, and we want to thank you, and we want to ask all our followers and friends to go out and get Yankee Miracles, because it's a tremendous book. Ray Negron, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ray.